I would say have the confidence in yourself that you can do whatever you want to do in this life. You don't have to do something just because you can, and you don't have to suffer to get what you want. You could have it all, and you need to trust yourself. Those are things I think people need to totally remember. And also, I say this, but you also do have to work. You also do have to, you might have to take a job you don't like for a while to do other things. So there is this work and this ethic that you need to have, but don't doubt yourself. That's my biggest.
Welcome to the Amani Experience Podcast. In this podcast, you will experience wisdom, advice, and stories from creatives all over the world. Your host is Amani Roberts, who is a DJ, music producer, professor, avid book reader, and developing salsa dancer. On the show, we love to share the stories of creative professionals, especially people who've gone from the corporate life to the creative life. Once again, welcome to the Amani Experience Podcast.
Welcome to episode 24 of the Amani Experience Podcast. Today, our guest is V Torres, also known as Veronica Torres. My favorite parts about this interview are a few things. First, just Veronica's perspective on competition. I really enjoyed hearing her talk about that. I also really respect her resilience in the game. She's been, even though she's very young, she's been in the music industry for a long time, and she continues to create and thrive. And then I also like how she describes her relationship with her father growing up, and then just how basketball's helped her. So please remember to subscribe to the podcast and leave us a rating. And to the show we go. Welcome back to the show. I'm going to read today's guest's bio, and then we'll get right to the show. Our guest today hails from the beach cities of Southern California, where she has spent her entire life in or around music and sports. While in high school, indie rock and hip-hop became her passion, and basketball gave her the drive to persevere through adversity. Our guest went on to attend Loyola Marymount University, majoring in accounting and minoring in theater arts. Upon graduation, she moonlighted as a corporate finance accountant to fund her musical career. To date, she has spent the majority of her career writing and performing with the band Gorgeous Got a Gun, and released their self-titled debut album in 2009, followed by Welcome Home in 2011, and single release I Remember You in 2016. During this time, her music video for the song Violent Games was featured on the Blu-ray release for the feature film Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. Nice. Since then, our guest has performed throughout the country while collaborating and recording with various artists and producers, including Joe McGrath and most recently Johnny Perdue and Steve Stout of Lost Beach. Backed by a newfound love of yoga and a desire to share her truth, our guest has infused a fresh energy and sound into her latest project, a 5-song EP, Real Life Love. Leveraging life's highs and lows, this project is inspired by the sense of urgency she has never lost throughout the years. Like any singer or songwriter, her music has matured while continuing to effectively convey her experiences and emotions. Welcome to the Amani Experience Podcast, Veronica Torres, also known as V Torres.
Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here.
You're welcome. We're very honored to have you here. So before we start, we always do a geographical check-in. So where are we today?
So today we are in my studio in Hermosa Beach, California.
Yes. So Hermosa Beach, California. Where were you born and raised?
I was born and raised not too far from here in Harbor City, which is just a little bit inland from Torrance, and spent most of my life in this area.
Nice. And so we heard in your bio that you went to LMU, Loyola Marymount, and you graduated in?
Graduated in 2006.
Okay.
And I was an accounting major and a theater arts minor.
So that's an interesting combination. How did you come up with that combination?
I think this kind of plays along into a lot that I'll talk about today. But I really wanted to act, and I started college wanting to be a theater major. So I started as a theater major and quickly kind of, got a little intimidated by the fact of financial situations, and I was going to come out with a lot of student loans, and ended up changing to a business major, and then did well in some accounting courses, and then became an accounting major, got a job right out of actually before I graduated. So it kind of just went into that mode of, okay, this is probably the smart, safe thing to do. But, theater, arts, and acting is still like near and dear to my heart.
All right. So I read somewhere where by the time you had graduated high school, you'd written over 100 songs.
Yes. So I did. So I guess I'll give you some background. I was a basketball player most of my life, so major athlete. And, towards the end of high school, we actually won a couple state championships in high school.
Oh, nice.
So it was really intense in high school. And I got kind of burnt out and decided, you know what, I kind of want to have a college life. I don't know if I want to play sports in college. I could have, but I was like, I'm going to just focus on enjoying school and, getting into that space. So when I didn't have, a huge career of basketball to do and a ton of, practices and work and everything that you have to put into it, there was a lot of free time there. So that's when I started, picking up the guitar and writing songs. And I just got super into it and really into the LA singer-songwriter scene, like back in like 2002, 2003. And just from then on, it was kind of like this beach rock kind of vibe. Back then, just me and the guitar, the acoustic guitar.
Cool. When you played basketball, what was your position?
Point guard.
Oh, so you ran the point, distributing, shooting threes?
Yes, it was fun. I loved it. I loved, the assists and just kind of getting the team together to work together. And I really enjoy it. I miss it to this day a lot.
Okay. Where can we go find some old footage?
Oh my gosh. I think the parents have some VHS tapes somewhere.
We'll have VHS throwback. All right. We'll have to get that. Running the point. Impressive. Cool. So another question is, I noticed in a lot of your music, you always reference 1111. Even on MySpace, I found that your handle on MySpace was like 1111 sessions.
Going way back.
Yes. What? Tell us about that.
Wow. So 1111 is, it started out as numbers that I would just constantly see on the clock at first. And it kind of started out as that silly thing of, make a wish and, whatever. But from then, it became much more of a concept to me. I see these numbers all the time. And it became like the universal openness, possibilities, belief, faith to me, kind of like a little wink from the universe, like you're on the right path. I actually notice when I don't pursue the things that I should be doing, I don't see it. And when I get back into my space of creating and writing and sharing my gifts, I see it all the time. It's so much so that when I was 17, I wanted a tattoo of it, and I just got it recently.
Oh, nice.
In August
on
my arm.
Nice.
And it basically the turning point was we recorded my new record, Real Life Love, in El Segundo, and the street that the studio was on, I'd driven down the street, hundreds of times in my life. But on the corner, when we were doing the car test, which is when you play the masters of your EP in the car to listen to it, how it will sound in the car, we drove down the street of the studio, and on the corner building, there's a huge 1111 on the address. And I'm like, okay, this is sign. This time. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, universal possibilities open and available to you.
I like it. What was your number in high school?
Of course, 11.
I walked right into that, but that's good.
Right.
Nice. Okay. So I have another question, but first we want to know, you graduated from college and you started working in an accounting firm. Tell us about kind of how you found the job and working in it, and then we're going to talk about your transition to going full-time.
Sure. So I got a job at Deloitte as a junior in college as an auditor. So I interned and had a job already set up for me, before I graduated. And it was one of those things that, at the time seemed great, big corporation, you're an adult, you're working, started working there, and just quickly found out immediately that I did not want this for my life. I was working like 60 to 70 hour weeks. As an auditor, it's kind of like a thankless job. No shots to anybody out there. It's a great job, but it's not me. And I did it for 2 years. You should stay in a firm like that for about 5 years to make manager, but I just couldn't do it anymore because my music was suffering. All my spare time was going to my music, and that was very little time. So I left that job after 2 years and went to a private equity company to go to the private side of accounting. And that all of a sudden I'm like working, 7 to 5:30 or 6. And I'm like, whoa, this is like a part-time job now, back then.
Right.
And I was doing more music, but still not 100% committed to it. And I've gone through kind of some highs and lows in that, where I think I got to a point at that job where I'm like, okay, I'm just going to focus on this job. And I moved up in the company and things got heavier and more intense, and so I actually worked there for 9 years.
Wow.
Yeah. While, 1 foot in the music, 1 foot out, I still did a lot with the band Gorgeous Got a Gun, but it was not, truly me. I felt like it was kind of part of me, but not all of me. And so when I finally got to the point where I'm like, okay, I was financially free. I paid off my debts. I saved some money, and I'm like, my soul is literally dying. So I need to leave this job.
Yeah.
So that kind of pushed me, and that has changed my music like in a 360.
Okay. How did you get the courage to say, okay, this is it. My soul has died enough. I have to go. How did you get the courage to make that move?
Oh, man. So I think there's times and things that come up, where you're like, I just can't do this. But reality sets in, and you're like, well, how am I going to fund this? How am I going to actually do this? And I grew up very you got to have like a security blanket, kind of. That's the way I was raised. And,
Me too.
Yeah. So that's always in my head,
Right.
I have that personality. So it just never felt right enough for me. And I think I didn't have enough self-worth either to where I could see myself actually doing this career and succeeding. So I would always just kind of doubt myself and be like, no, I'm just going to keep working. But I finally got to a point where I just really found my self-worth and feel like I've evolved as a human being to become more of like who I am, and just know that I don't need to be doing this career anymore. So I could have probably quit before, but I think timing just wasn't right.
Okay. You spoke about self-worth. A lot of people struggle with that. How did you get through that so that you recognize your self-worth, which is very high, and be able to kind of take that next step?
So I quit this job last March. So it's almost been a year. And I immediately went into a teacher training for yoga program. That was a 6-month long thing. I've wanted to do that for probably the last 6 years, and I just have never had the time. So I figured this would be a great balance for me, as I go through this transition. And the yoga teacher training actually really, you go really, really deep, and that really helped me the most. I have to accredit that to like getting the self-worth and understanding, what I need in this life and what I need to share. So I think that was like a huge part of it.
Okay. And how has quitting the job helped your music?
So quitting the job has presented a lot of opportunities. First of all, having the time and the space to create is very important. And I don't think I had that when I was working the corporate job. You get burnt out, you come home, you have all these grandiose ideas of what you're going to do after work, but you're dead and you're trying to work out and do other things. So just being able to actually have the time to get creative is huge. And I think you have to give yourself that time and that space. So that's been a huge plus. Also, the people I've met since quitting my job and the collaborations I've been able to do have been tenfold, because I'm available in the day to go up to North Hollywood and meet someone for a songwriting session. And just all of that energy, time, and space has just been wide open now, so I can actually make these relationships and be more open with my music, which I was not able to do before.
Okay. So let's go back to 2005, and you were at the Roxy. You sold out the Roxy and then had a standing ovation doing just an acoustic guitar set. Talk to us about that. That's amazing.
Wow. I love that you did this research. It's amazing. I have an old picture from that I was looking at the other day, and that alone, I have to say that moment was really huge because the Roxy's a big club and it's on the Sunset Strip, and I'm this younger kid, and I'm just playing the acoustic guitar. I mean, that place is loud, and
yes,
to have people be quiet and listen to you is just amazing. And that gave me a huge boost, like that energy, that feeling on stage, and just looking out and seeing all those people. I'm like, I love this. And the fact that people were like, I love that song, or I love this song, or this made me feel this way. That is exactly why I want to keep doing this.
Yeah, that was dope. Like I found that out, did my research, and I was just like, wow. So you were what, 21 years old when that happened?
Yeah.
So 21,
Probably,
21,
yeah.
young, acoustic guitar. Like people don't know, the Roxy's a famous venue in LA. Like that's a big deal. So props to you.
Thank
well
you.
done. You've been in the game now for like 16, 17, maybe 18 years.
God, yeah.
I don't want to scare you. You're still young. You're still very young. You know, they'll say we started when you were 10 years old. So you started very young.
Yeah.
But would you say that was a turning point in your career? What was a turning point in your career?
I mean, that was a big moment. From there, I was able to kind of hook up with a producer, and I actually released an EP called 1111 back then. So I was able to open a lot of doors with, the industry folks and other artists. So that was kind of put me on the map. But I would say most recently, a big turning point for me is I attended a songwriting retreat
Nice.
up in actually a little forest outside of Santa Cruz. It was something that I applied for. I figured I wasn't going to get in, and I did get in, and there was 26 of us from all around the world. And it was just like a very unique experience, like being at camp with people. Everyone can sing really good and everyone is very talented. But for me, I went into it like, oh my gosh, I'm nervous. I'm scared. I'm not going to be the best at this. But I ended up doing really well and understanding like, hey, you can write songs, and you can write songs with other people that aren't your songs. And that has changed the game for me, because now I'm doing a ton of songwriting, whether it's for me or not, and collaborations. And, that's a way that you can actually make money in this industry.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Great. When was the camp?
Not that long ago. It was the end of September.
Oh, so less than a year, and you made it. Like, although you were fearful of not being accepted, what motivated you just to try it?
I just think this whole transition of me just understanding that self-worth and learning like you can do this stuff, you are good enough to do it. And it is scary, but like I got in the car and I threw my guitar in the car and like did that little 7-hour drive, very fearful. But the drive home, it was a complete opposite feeling. I'm like, wow, I'm empowered. Like, it's just great to throw yourself in uncomfortable situations. And I've been doing that a lot lately.
Well done. Yeah. Very euphoric drive home, I bet, wasn't it?
Oh, yes.
Great. So we're in LA, and we can talk about LA and kind of all over the world, but, being a singer, songwriter, a talented artist, it's crowded. There's lots of people here who come here, they make it, they don't make it. What's important for creative professionals such as yourself to succeed in today's business environment?
So I think the biggest thing is to stay focused, because there are a lot of distractions, especially in music. There's a lot of people with opinions. There's a lot of people, that say, hey, you need to wear this or look like this or be this or do this. I think you need to stay focused on what you want to do and what you want to share and what you believe in. Because if you're faking it, people can see right through that. So I think that's a huge, because there's a lot of people doing it, but not a lot of people are being authentic. And the other thing I was going to say is surrounding yourself with positive people. And I just posted an Instagram post about this, but it's so important to not get depleted. And it's so easy to get depleted from negativity. And there's a lot of it in the industry. There's a lot of people on substance abuse as well. And I think you just have to really stay focused on the end game and prioritize. Good.
I like what you mentioned about surrounding yourself with like very positive people. How have you been able to do that throughout your career?
Man, it's not always easy. I definitely think there's been some negativity in there for sure. And I think that's living and learning. But now more than ever, I try to I like to say, I have a song called Real Life Love, and it's all about, real, honest human connectivity and, no drama. And that's kind of what I try to live my life by. Like if there's drama, I'm just not going to be there because I can't. I just don't have time for it. So, I think as you get older, you start editing your life more. And, as you're younger, you're hanging out with everyone and doing everything. But now I just really try to pick and choose my time wisely and who I'm spending it with.
Good. Very wise. They say you're the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So good decision.
Yes.
Why do you love what you do?
So I love writing music and creating melodies because it is something that just comes naturally to me. It's not something I have to work on. I mean, obviously I work on to be better at it, but it's something that is innately inside of me and always has been. When I was a kid, if a song would come on the radio, the instrumental would start and I would just make up the melody before like the actual singing would come on. And I'd be like, God, I just love it. I love doing that. And I actually have a song called Uncovering that's on the EP. And it's all about uncovering who you are instead of trying to discover who you are, because, you are already in there. So for me, the whole part that it comes naturally is huge. And then I also love it because it's a universal language. It doesn't matter who you are, where you come from. A sound sonically can change you. It can change your mood. It can inspire you. It changes. I listen to music all the time, probably more than I do anything else. And, it's just inside of me. And I want to, for as long as I can, keep, writing and collaborating on that.
Cool. So both writing lyrics and melodies just comes easy to you. Like, how do you come up with your lyrics, and what do you do to kind of complete that process?
So it's funny. Most of my time, I'll start with a riff on the guitar. So I'll write a guitar riff and then I'll sing something over that. And a lot of the times, whatever comes out is the final lyric. I've been working on my lyrics lately to try to really think about that song and what I'm writing. So it's kind of been evolving now. But before, I would just record it. And a lot of the times just what's coming out is what I keep. And now I'm just trying to be very specific in my writing.
Yeah.
So I'm working more on, I'll do that process and then I'll edit it a lot and think, okay, what perspective are we talking about? And a lot of the things I've learned on that songwriter retreat kind of come into play there.
Good.
Yeah.
I know I take piano lessons every week, and so my instructor is helping me with melodies, and it takes me weeks to come up with even 4-bar melodies. So if it comes right out of you, that's really good.
Oh, well,
and then your lyrics. So on your 5-song EP, I love all the tracks. My favorite track is Old Soul.
Awesome.
And so you have these 2 lyrics that I want to read to you, and I want to get your perspective in terms of how you wrote them, because I really like them. So it's one, it says, I know you have to be a little lonely so the heart is understood. And then the next refrain says, I know you have to be a little lonely so that the heart knows what it is worth. So deep lyrics. I love that. How'd you come up with that?
Thank you. This song is pretty deep. I think I wrote it September of 2016, maybe.
Okay.
At the time, I was interviewing for a couple other jobs in my same industry, but I had reached a level where I was going more into a CFO role and, just needed more money, and got to the point where I was kind of disgusted at myself and the fact of, wow, I just want this job because of this money. That's the only reason that I'm going to try to get this job. And there were some other things to play there too in my personal relationships that kind of paralleled. But I think, you have to go inward and you have to be good with yourself before you can be good in a relationship or good at your job. And this song is kind of being okay with being alone and being okay with understanding that the time that I invest in myself is incredibly well invested. And you are going to get lonely and you are going to be sad. But at the flip side, you're going to understand what you're worth at the end of the day. So that's kind of where that came into play.
Nice. Thanks for explaining. I had to rewind and listen to that a couple of times. I was like, ooh, this is good. It was all good, but I was like, I got to write this down. So well done.
Nice. Thank you.
You're welcome. What is something that scares you?
Ooh, so I guess, I can have some irrational fears. I think one of the biggest things is, failure, obviously, in this, and maybe having to go back to, I always put it oh God, I might have to just go back to corporate America and do this job again and be miserable. So I would say that's one of my biggest fears, but it's kind of irrational. I have to taper that.
Yeah. Same with me. I used to work for Marriott for over 20 years. So I'm not going back. I can't go back, but it'll always be there. So they're not going anywhere.
Right.
So
exactly.
we have the freedom to pursue our creative pursuits, and we're going to make it though. So we don't have to worry about that.
We are.
Great. How has a failure or an apparent failure set you up for later success? Do you have a favorite failure of yours?
Ooh, this is a deep question. I think, spending my 20s kind of checking boxes and just checking out of, what I really want or think I should be able to do. And that self-worth thing we keep coming back to is one of the things that has been a failure for myself because, I was doing a lot of things that I thought you're supposed to be doing at this point in your life because that's what you do. You kind of get on autopilot and you kind of get sad and depressed. And, I think that has led to some big failures in my life. And I didn't know if I was going to get into this, but I'm currently going through a divorce. And, I was in an 11-year relationship. And it's hard because you kind of do things and then you realize, okay, I'm growing now and we're kind of going in different directions. And now I'm actually doing the stuff that maybe I wish I would have done 10 years ago, and that would have put me in a different place. But I look at it as a learning point, and I'm still young enough to kind of rebalance the situation, and it has really opened up a lot of doors for me and a lot of opportunities for me to learn and to grow from that. So I see that as helping me with my future success, because who knows, I could have done this for like another couple decades,
And been miserable.
Yeah. And I think you just got to get to that point where you got to start honoring what you're feeling and moving in the direction towards, because I truly believe, and I think Jamie, who was on your podcast, Horgan, she's a yoga teacher and a friend of mine, she had mentioned something in one of her classes that like the purpose of life is to share your gifts, recognize your gifts and share them with the world. And I keep coming back to that, in most recently, and I'm like, I got to do that. And I feel like there's a platform that I need to share with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So keep sharing with us.
Thanks.
We like it. So keep it going. Great. What do you do, because the fact that there's so many singers, songwriters, there's a lot of quote unquote competition, especially in LA, but really all over the world. How do you like rise above all the noise, all the competition, and distinguish yourself?
I think this goes back to something I mentioned earlier, but I think you have to really be honest and true and only put out what you really believe in. Because if you're putting out things that you don't really believe in, they're never going to come across like correct. And I also think, before when I was in the band, I would get really jealous of like other people's success, which I think is pretty immature. But now I just really support everyone I know's success, and I'm truly happy for them and like want to collaborate more with them or share them with others. And I think that whole competition thing is just something that kind of has to be thrown out the door, especially when you're doing something creatively. Because
Yes.
what you said, I forgot what you said earlier, but when we were doing before the podcast.
Right. Before the show.
Yeah.
What were we talking about?
If you want to go somewhere fast, do it alone.
That's right.
Yeah.
If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Exactly. And I think, that's why now I don't really see it like, I know there's competition, but I'm not focused on that. I'm focused on, here's what I do. I might not be your cup of tea because you're not going to be everyone's cup of tea, and you got to be okay with that.
Yeah. There's a good interview out there that Tim Ferriss did with Terry Crews. I'll send it to you. He talks about competition. It's a really unique perspective that's good because we all suffer from the comparison trap, and that can be brutal. What did you do? Because it's hard to get over. Like, how have you been able to get over it? Because, like, me, I still struggle. So help me. Like, how did you get over that?
Oh, man, I know. I would focus on, there'd be 20 positive comments. I'd focus on the one negative one before, on your.
How dare they?
Exactly. I mean, I think it all comes together with just being secure and like understanding that it doesn't matter, letting those things kind of roll off. And I kind of attribute this to my yoga practice too, is the practice of non-reactivity. How do you respond to things, and what does that say about your character? So if you're totally responding to all the negative energy, that's what you're going to build again. And maybe this is basic, but I kind of let those things go now. And I sometimes laugh about it. I'm like, oh yeah, maybe that's true, whatever. But I kind of just practice that like non-reactivity towards those situations.
Okay. That's good. I'm going to take lessons from you. Great work. Kind of on the flip side, or similar kind of tenor to the question, like, how do you handle your critics? As a musician, there are tons of critics. Like, it's a heavily criticized and opinionated industry. Like, how do you handle that and still maintain to stay in the game for 16 or 17 years?
Oh, man.
You're still young, though, so don't worry.
We're aging me big time. I think, it's hard because that's just age and growth and wisdom. I used to take it real hard and get mad about it. And at this point, I think you just have to like roll with the punches. And, honestly, you can listen to those things, but you don't have to focus on it. So at this point, it's kind of like the similar before. I just kind of like say, all right, whatever, not everyone's going to love me, and I'm okay with that.
Right. True. Tell us about the darkest time in your life. You might have already explained this to us, but we'll ask again. And then how did you get through that, and what did you learn from that experience?
I think this has been something that's been more recent for me, with the what I'm going through with the divorce and my relationship for the last decade, especially through the holidays this past years. It was especially rough. And I think it kind of touches in with the fact that you have to go inward, and it's very hard. But you have to kind of stare yourself in the face and accept, the actions that you've done throughout your life, and just understand like where you want to go from there and how can you change it to be better in the future, or reflect on what did I do, but not too much. And just kind of learn from that. I have an amazingly strong support group with my friends and family, thank God. So, those people really helped me throughout this time. But a lot of it, I was alone and with my thoughts. And that's a dark place to be. It's very
dangerous.
But I feel like staring yourself in the face and knowing what you really want, what you're really worth, and where you want to go from here, you eventually get to a place that you're like, all right, I'm even more empowered now to do what I want to do. And I've got the fuel now in my fire.
Yes, you do. You've shown another example of being very resilient. And I know that you mentioned like basketball growing up gave you the drive to persevere through adversity. And now you're applying that. Like, how did basketball give you the drive? Like, how did that happen?
So for me, being an athlete and playing sports is such a huge learning experience for all aspects of life. And I was so dedicated to it and so involved that it really showed me how, first of all, to work with people and personalities and be a team, which is kind of number one in anything you're going to do in life. It was very difficult sometimes. You're in high school, judgments, insecurities, etc. Just getting through that, and I met such great friends throughout those years, but really just learning how to navigate people's personalities and like work with people. I think that that's a huge learning point for me, because I still apply that today. Like, how do you respond to someone based upon what is their personality like?
Right.
Yeah.
Good. Who was the most influential person for you growing up?
This was a hard one. I was thinking about this, and there's a lot of people that come to mind. One being a basketball coach that I had, but I think I would like to talk about my father, because he definitely, he's been around my whole life, so he's been very influential, and he's pushed me super hard, almost maybe too hard sometimes. He lost his dad when he was 3, so he grew up struggling with that, and without giving him, I don't know, he got into a lot of trouble,
right.
And he like learned a lot of things, and has become amazingly successful in his career without going to college, and didn't come from a lot of money, and just really worked on me and my sister of hard work, determination, believing in yourself, having friends and acquaintances and what the difference between that is. But he's just been extremely influential and has pushed me to kind of reach the goals that I want to see throughout my life.
Good. All right. Props to that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Here you go.
So if we're going to go back, 21-year-old Veronica.
Oh, man.
And I think you were probably still at LMU.
Yep.
And maybe you had just finished this amazing show at the Roxy, which we need to find footage of that. Is that on VHS too?
We might have some on like the Flipgram or whatever that thing used to be. I think I have something there.
Okay, we're going to find some footage of that.
I was blonder and a lot younger.
That's okay. We need the footage. So if we're going to talk to 21-year-old Veronica and give her some advice based on what you know now, what would you say?
I would say have the confidence in yourself that you can do whatever you want to do in this life. You don't have to do something just because you can, and you don't have to suffer to get what you want. You could have it all, and you need to trust yourself. Those are things I think people need to like totally remember. And also, I say this, but you also do have to work. You also do have to. You might have to take a job you don't like for a while to do other things. So there is this work and this ethic that you need to have, but don't doubt yourself. That's my biggest.
Good. I'm glad you mentioned the work ethic, because a lot of people kind of forget that you got to put the work in to get, the success and all the rewards.
Yeah, I actually just posted something on my Instagram about this. I posted a New Year post, but most recently, from quitting the job and starting to do this full time, I have a lot of people that comment, "You're so lucky. You're so lucky. Oh my God." And they see a snippet of what's going on. They don't see this whole picture, and there's a lot going on. But I have to tell them, you really have to look at what your plan is, and you can't just be like frivolous. I'm going to quit my job and I got, $10 to my name and it's just going to happen. No, this was years. This was a decade in process. There was some ups and downs and second guesses, but it wasn't like I just was like, all right, guys, I'm just quitting my job and whatever. It's a lot of work, and it's not easy. It's scary.
Yes.
It's constantly scary.
It is. So what you said reminded me of this picture. It's called the iceberg illusion. So I'll put it in the show notes, but I'm going to show it to you because it's exactly what you just described. It kind of talks about like how, success, that's what people see is success. But underneath it, they don't see the hard work, the failure, the stress, the tears, everything. So
this is so good.
I'll send it to you.
Yes, please do. I'm going to put that on my wall.
I'll add it to the show notes. So great. Let's see here. What is the one lesson in life that took you the longest to learn? And as you answer that, I'm going to put a little Instagram stories up for us too.
All right. Well, it's going to go back to our theme here of self-worth, knowing that you're worth it and you can do that. Yeah, you want to be a singer, you can be a singer. You want to play guitar, you can play guitar. You want to be the CEO of a company, you can do that. Work is about getting in the door and then working your butt off and seeing where that leads you. I think a lot of the time I would sit there and be like, well, I don't think I'd be able to do that. I'm not the best, so I might as well just do this because I can and it makes money, but you got to let that go. So that's a big lesson that I would say.
All right, good. Now, every great person has a sentence. What is your sentence? So for example, mine would be, I help people unlock their creativity by teaching them how to DJ.
Okay, I have two things.
Okay.
So first
We'll allow that.
is one sentence that has been a mantra beyond for me for the last year and a half has been everything is temporary.
Uh-huh.
Obviously, a lot of yoga practice goes into this, but it applies everywhere. The good, the bad, everything is temporary, and you got to practice that detachment from situations that bring you pain. So that's one thing. And then I actually have like a mission statement for myself.
Good, share.
Which is not one sentence, but so mine is, you have been blessed with gifts. It is your purpose to share those gifts with the world. You are here to inspire others through music, words, good deeds, and art. Start focusing on your purpose, set goals, and knock them out, inspiring others along the way.
Well done. I think you're the first person on the show that's read the mission statement. I like it.
Thank you.
Well done. What is one new habit that you've added to your daily routine in the past year or two that has been most beneficial?
So, meditating before you go to sleep, and when you wake up in the morning. I've been a little bad about it in the last month and a half, but it is something that is life changing. Even if you start with 5 minutes a day, it gets you grounded and focused, and really gets you set on what you want to do.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's a good one. Meditation. We all have to. I got to work on that myself.
It's a good one.
You know. Yeah. So I understand that a lot of artists inspire you. A couple specific artists that inspire you are Janis Joplin, Stevie Nicks, and then Regina Spektor.
Oh, yeah.
So she's a little bit of a unique one. So talk to us about Regina and how she inspires you.
Oh, man. Regina Spektor. I remember 2006, her album Soviet Kiss came out, and I think I was a junior. It might have been 2005. I can't remember. But it's one of her first albums. And I listened to it. I remember on the way to this accounting one of these accounting breakfasts I was going to, and I was like in my little like business casual listening to this woman sing, and like literally one of her songs, the background of the song, it was like just drumsticks on a chair with her voice, and the way that she used her voice as an instrument and her lyrical content, like I was just blown away. I hadn't heard someone do that before. It completely inspired me, and the fact that she was female and she was Russian, and she came to the U.S. and tried to have this career, and she just was amazing. And so that album like changed my life. If you listen to it, there's so much depth to that album, and so many like dark concepts, death, divorce, cancer. There's just a lot of things that she was talking about, but she would like throw in weird hip hop beats with her voice. And I grew up on hip hop in the 90s.
Yes.
I loved it. It's a big influence for me. So just hearing that, I was like, this girl is amazing. So I've stuck with her. But if you listen to that record, and she also, oddly enough, you won't find it on Spotify or iTunes, but if you Google it, her first EP name was 1111.
Oh,
crazy.
There you go.
Yeah.
Good parallels there.
I know.
Speaking of 90s hip hop and kind of R&B, who are some of the artists and songs that you love?
I mean, there's so many, but like, God, I have like a playlist on my Spotify that I should share with this that has all of that. But obviously like Tupac, Biggie, Mace, P Diddy, like all that stuff, huge. Little Kim, just I grew up in that and around that, and I think you can kind of hear certain elements of it, like on The World Won't Wait, which is on my EP. There's a little vibes in there. But for me, that I love it.
Okay, cool. We love 90s hip hop and R&B here, so props
Like
to
if
you.
you were DJing, I would probably go up to you and request it, and you would
Okay.
be mad at me.
Yeah, I would think about it, but if I knew you and I was like, well, it's Veronica, so I'll hook her up, But if I didn't know, you'd be like, okay, maybe. I also understand that 10 Things I Hate About You is one of your favorite movies.
Oh, wow. God, I haven't thought about that in a long time.
Tell us why you like that movie. Great movie.
Man. That's a throwback. Wow. Heath Ledger. I think I remember loving it because the girl in the movie, the older sister, was just such a cool, awesome girl that like went to punk rock concerts and played guitar and was inspiring to her little sister and was going against all odds, and fempowerment, and Save Ferris played on the roof on like the credits. It's a cheesy little 90s flick, but I love it.
Cool. Julia Stiles. Good movie.
Oh yeah, Julia Stiles.
Yes. Perfect.
That and Almost Famous would probably be like tied for the first.
There you go. That's good. We got one of the two, so well done. So we're big readers here on the My Experience podcast, and so we love to find out what books you like. So if there was 1, 2, or 3, books that you think people should stop what they're doing right now and start reading it right away, what books would those be?
So I will go philosophical first, and I would recommend The Tree of Yoga by BKS Iyengar, who's one of the founders of yoga, and it just touches on all subjects of life, from childhood to death to sexuality, to just everything, and kind of puts it in perspective with yoga. So for me, I really like having something tangible that teaches me something intangible. And I think this book is amazing, whether you do yoga or not, whether you're spiritual or not. It's just a really good read. So I would suggest that. And then I would go to another one regarding, entrepreneurship, business, there's a book called Do Cool, SHIT.
Okay.
But there's an asterisk there,
Right.
SH asterisk T. I didn't want to say it. By Mickey Agarwal, who is a entrepreneur. She's opened restaurants, and she started actually an underwear company for women. But this book is really cool because I resonated with her a lot. She was a soccer player, and then she went into iBanking, and it kind of reminded me a little bit of my story. And personality-wise, similar, but she goes in and just kind of teaches you how you can kind of get through and get by starting your own career without having a ton of funding, without having all these connections, but building them. And one of the biggest things she talks about is mutually beneficial relationships. And I'm a firm believer in that, not just trying to take, but kind of going up to someone first and saying, hey, how can I help you? And then therefore, in return, maybe you can help me with something, not like, hey, how can you help me all the time?
Right.
Be more giving, be more open, but learn how you can trade and do things with people. So I would say it's a funny read, and it's a good read for people who are, trying to break into their own business and maybe quit their jobs and start doing something they want to do.
Great suggestions. We'll add that to the list in the show notes. Tell people how they can find you online.
So you can find me on all social media at V Torres, Torres music. So I'm on Instagram, Facebook on there. And I actually have music out right now on Spotify, iTunes, Amazon, all the streaming services under V Torres. And I have a gig coming up. I was hoping I could blast about that. I'm playing February 19th at the Mint in Los Angeles.
Good venue.
It's called the Honeypot Showcase. It's actually a bunch of bands. It's going to be really fun. And I'm releasing new songs soon. I just recorded last week 2 new songs that are pretty cool. I'm excited about. So one of those will be out in February.
Good. So we'll link to all that information. And so as we kind of wrap up the show, I just want to say thanks for being on the show. You have excellent energy. I love your story. And we vibe really well here talking. So I respect your resilience. So keep going. You've been around the music industry for a long time, and you're still here thriving, putting out new music and creating more. So definitely props to you.
Thank you so much.
You're
I appreciate
welcome.
that.
Of course. So keep going. And then as we leave, we always let the guests give a little last minute advice to whoever's listening out there. So we'll let you kind of leave with that, and, we'll keep in touch.
All right. So my advice to you, you are exactly where you're supposed to be right now. Trust yourself.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Amani Experience podcast. You can check out the show notes on amaniexperience.com/podcast. Please remember to leave us a review on the platform you are listening on, and share this podcast with anyone who you feel would benefit from listening. See you soon on our next episode.